Lakas ng kahapon ay lumipas, paghilom na rin sa wakas. Itong tamang panahon upang tayo ay umahon sa bagong umagang dala-dala ay pag-asa. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli, pagbigkisin muli ang ating lahi. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli. Ito na ang sandali, ganap na ang kahirapan, nagtatanong lahat ng kasagutan. Pandemya na nararanasan, magtulong-tulong upang malunasan. Itong tamang panahon upang tayo ay umahon sa bagong umagang dala-dala ay pag-asa. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli, pagbigkisin muli ang ating lahi. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli. Ito na ang sandali. Ikaw ay mayroong malasakit sa bayan nating inibig. Sigaw ng puso at damdamin, ramdam namin iyong diringgin. Itong tamang panahon upang tayo ay umahon sa bagong umagang dala-dala ay pag-asa. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli, pagbigkisin muli ang ating lahi. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli. Ito na ang sandali, sama-sama tayong babangong muli, pagbigkisin muli ang ating lahi. Sama-sama tayong babangong muli. Ito na ang sandali.
Sa wakas, dumating na. Sama-sama tayong babangon.
Magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat mga kababayan. Sa lahat po ng mga naandito, ano? At mukhang ano mukhang kinakabahan ako ngayon. First time ko lang kabahan, ha. Hindi ko alam kung bakit ba kay Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Alam naman ho natin 'yun. Anyway, mga kababayan, ngayon po ay meron tayong special guest, ha. At sa lahat po ng mga andito na nakaantabay, bago ho natin paakyatin yung ating bisita, si Mr. Malcolm Conlan, binabati ko ho muna kayo ng magandang magandang gabi, ano, at sa lahat po ng mga naandito. Salamat po sa inyong lahat. Kung ano man ang mangyari, ha, wag sana maging daan ito para discriminate nyo ako, ha. Walang ganunan, ha, mga kababayan, ha. Alam ko naman kung naiintindihan ninyo. Okay? At sana ho dumating si Kabayan JDB. Oo, mukhang wala rin si Kabayan JDB, ha. Anyway, mga kababayan, tawagin na ho natin yung ating ano para matapos na 'to. Tawagin na natin yung ating guest for tonight, ano. And ito na po, Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Here we go, mga kasama po natin ngayong gabing ito sa ating live sa Reaction TV. Host, interpreter here. Ayan, sabi niya nung Ma'am Frosty, mega love shoutout po. Ma'am Bena Atu, kay Trixie Vidia 11, Tita Pia Di Gospel, RTV family, mega love shoutout sa inyo lahat. Anyway, let's welcome mga kabayan, Mr. Malcolm Conlan.
Hi everybody. Kumusta ka? Magandang gabi sa Pilipinas and magandang umaga sa UK and magandang tanghali wherever you are sa buong mundo. Salamat po.
Ayun, no, galing na magtagalog ni Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Anyway, sir, thank you for accepting my invitation, ano. And before we start, sir, we'll start our show. Nako, very interesting topic po ito. And anyway, thank you very much sa time for being here sa ating live and our guest for tonight, mga kababayan. This is Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Alam niyo 'yon, siya po yung pinakang isa sa mga naging kaibigan ko. At ano 'yan way back ano ba 'yan? Way back it's been year or two. I think although you know, mga kaibigan, we don't communicate that much, Mr. Malcolm Conlan, but we're keeping in touch. Oh, we're keeping in touch. At talagang naandito siya sa atin palagi. And always na open hand po kapag tayo ay nagme-message sa kanya. Always na nandito po si Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Kaya siya po ay matatawag natin talagang may pusong ano. Kaya nga tinawag siyang pusong Pinoy. He's not a Filipino, but a Filipino heart. That's why we call him pusong Pinoy. Tama ba, Mr. Malcolm?
Oo, tama. Maraming salamat. I can understand you. Intindihan sa Tagalog, is that right?
Ayan, intindihin daw sa Tagalog yan. And anyway, sir, hindi na tayo magpapaligoy, no? This is my question. First question. Now, my friend, it's your turn to please greet again to all viewers and who are patiently waiting, are excited to watch and listen sa ating live streaming. And please greet again.
I'd like to say thank you, maraming salamat, for supporting Reaction TV. I'm very grateful to the hosts for reaching out. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's been commenting on this chat, on this live stream, and really interacting. Hopefully I can answer any questions the host has, but also any questions that you have. And I also apparently have a translator, according to somebody in the chat stream. So anything you don't understand, feel free to translate. Anyway, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm looking forward to this. Maraming po sa invite.
You're nervous, sir, because I'm speaking Tagalog, and I'm nervous also because you're speaking English. So both nervous.
It's okay. It's okay, like.
Yeah. Anyway, Mr. Malcolm Conlan. I know. It's been 1 year and 2 years more, to my friend. And very long time. Thank you very much. Still now, my friend, Mr. Malcolm. Anyway, this is my first question before we proceed to our main topic. Mr. Malcolm, we asked Mr. Malcolm COVID situation to this earth. Okay. Um, Mr. Malcolm, about the COVID situation and government response as compared to us, uh, how to UK? How in UK?
Firstly, I'd like to say it's very easy to
Mm,
be critical. There are a lot of
mm,
politicians, maybe back home in the
mm,
Philippines, who are maybe critical of the COVID response of the Duterte administration.
mm,
But the fact is, the world has never seen anything like this
mm,
before. It's great to be critical, but
mm,
how about you are in charge? How about you're in the government? How about you deal with it? I
mm,
think people don't understand how difficult things really are, particularly for the economy, particularly as some of the plans have had to be put on hold. And people say don't borrow, but where are you going to get the money from? Are you going to magic it up? Clearly, the world is borrowing, not only the Philippines, but the
mm,
entire world is needing to borrow to get through this COVID pandemic. And regarding the Philippines, I think the Duterte administration, the government is doing a fantastic job. They're almost
mm,
out of these terrible times. Only the last few days, they've welcomed foreigners back into the Philippines. The world is on the road to recovery. I remember before so many people were talking about vaccines and the Philippines' poor
mm.
response in terms of
Yeah.
getting vaccinations. But look now, a massive number of people have been vaccinated throughout the Philippines, and the Philippines is moving in the right direction. So I'd commend the government, but also to the bashers out there. You try and deal with it. What would you do? How would you do any better?
Mm. So it's very difficult for in the Philippines because Philippines is a very uh, freedom country, and the government issue all the uh, vaccination all have, but the problem is the budget for the vaccination. So this is a problem, and we know the Philippines is not not too much for giving the budget or everything, because it's Philippines is poor country.
Of course, but I think there's a lot of help internationally. I know the
Yeah,
Philippines has acquired a variety of vaccines, but on top of that, the COVAX initiative has given millions of vaccines to the Philippines as well, including the AstraZeneca.
yeah,
It's an international response, and so it
mm,
should be. People have to understand there's 11 million Filipinos who go abroad in terms of being OFWs, and they
yeah,
are supporting the world. So isn't it right that the world gives back to the Philippines through the vaccination program in order to build the country up? And I think that's only fair. And I commend the British government and other governments around the world for also giving back to the Philippines. But I think it's their responsibility too. If you're going to take nurses from the Philippines and healthcare workers, etc., you need to give something back. If you're going to take the skills from the Philippines, you need to return something. And I think the international community is doing very well. But also, one mustn't forget, the Philippine government has also needed to borrow, has also needed to obtain funds to get more vaccines and whatever else they're doing in terms of the pandemic. And I think it's only right that the government have done this. And, people who bash the government, again, what would you do? How would you deal with it any differently? I think the Philippine government has done a fantastic effort, and they demand respect. And of course, they have my credit. And I think the credit of millions around the world, particularly those OFWs who can return home now.
yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. Now, before proceed to our let's move on to our main topic. Yan. Main concern, which is the presidential candidate issue, Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Uh, I know, and I very every day, every single day, when you post your video to reaction about the politics in the Philippines. So this is very hot issue this coming 2022 election, or May 9, 2022 election. Mr. Malcolm, we knew pretty well that you are following on when it comes to Philippines politics, especially now that we're so close to the coming election, presidential election, 2022, as a very hot issue, di ba? Very, very, very hot
Yes.
issue.
Completely. I've been told this morning that some of my videos have ended up on TikTok, and apparently they've been viewed
Yeah,
1 million times. That's crazy. It's such an important topic, but more than that, it's people's future, and of course, it's only right that the Philippine people really take care in understanding the issues, because it affects every single Filipino. It affects their children and generations to come. What this next
mm,
administration does will have a
yes,
legacy lasting a lifetime, as did the previous generation. So it's very, very important that Filipinos are up to date and they don't rely maybe on the biased Western media. The fact is, people talk about Facebook being alternative facts and everything else, but it's for the man on the street, it's for the person on the street to say exactly what's happening. And that's why I'm a
yes.
big supporter of Facebook, because it gives people a voice who didn't have a voice before, and it means
Yeah.
people can express their views on such a
Mhm.
hot topic and an important topic.
Yeah, very important topic and very, very important topic for this coming 2022 election, Mr. Malcolm. I know that you are PRRD or President Duterte supporters. I know, and we know also na you are supporters of President Duterte. My question is, now that the PRRD is about to end and his 6 years term in the office, who among the presidential candidate you're aiming on?
It's very easy to give
Very easy.
my show my loyalties
Yeah.
quite clearly. I believe Bongbong Marcos will be the
Wow.
next president of the Philippines,
Wow.
and I believe Inday Sara Duterte will be the next vice president of the Republic of the Philippines. I don't think there is any other viable candidate, and we can
Yeah.
talk about that later. But all I would say is that I support BBM and Inday Sara for president and vice president.
Yes. Thank you very much. And my follow-up question: why you want support Bongbong Marcos or BBM? Why?
The fact is, it's not an easy game getting into Philippine politics. So many people maybe try and, again, are quick to criticize and quick to bash other candidates. Before we come on to the presidential interviews directly, particularly the ones hosted by Boy Abunda, I'd like to say I find BBM to be a gentleman. He
Yeah.
doesn't have this characteristic of bashing others and criticizing. He comes from a massive background of politics and political experience. He understands politics. He understands how difficult it is to lead a country. He has a lot of political experience, as congressman, as senator. His sister, of course, is a senator as well. I had the
Yes.
opportunity to meet her in the Senate. They come from a very strong political family, and he is able to converse at all levels with all people and be very diplomatic. And that's something that is key. But not only that, he has a massive support going on for decades. And
Mm.
many people have said that BBM was robbed when he was going for vice president before. And now it seems there are people who are trying to stop that from happening again. But all I can say is I believe that particularly his pairing with Inday Sara Duterte, Bongbong Marcos is not silly. He's a clever man. He knows what's best for the country, and he knows a lot of supporters would like to see that Duterte legacy continue through the daughter of President Duterte. But she
Yeah.
is her own woman. She's not another President Duterte. She's a strong-minded woman, and she knows what's best for the country. I believe she'll be very key in this tandem in the upcoming administration. So again, it's BBM, Inday Sara Duterte. I've heard lots of people bashing me. I have lots of critics myself. But,
Yeah.
I can only go on what I believe in my heart. And I believe they will be best for the Philippines.
Yes. Okay. So, um, meaning to say, your reason why to become you support to BBM, because the all experiences, regardless or everything, the position of experience, congressman, like congressman and the senator, so everything. So you your reason become why to become support BBM. How about the
Mm.
Duterte? Because we know um, the the third President Duterte is your support. And how about the daughter? How about the daughter? And uh, meaning to say, I ask you how to become a pro Duterte.
You know, the way I see it is this. So I've met Indai Sara Duterte. I was very kindly offered the opportunity to meet her for breakfast going back a year and a half ago in London. And she was very charming. She was very civil. She was very courteous. But, you know, she commands that presence. You know when she's in the room, she has that grace about her. She has that leadership about her. But
Yeah.
not only that, you have to remember when Amy Marcos was interviewing her, when she went for the position, I think, of either sergeant or colonel in the Philippine Reserve Forces. And she was friendly, she was outgoing, she was very, very respectful. And that's the thing, I know some people would talk about President Duterte and
Yeah.
his feelings over other candidates. I don't think
Yeah.
BBM has been mentioned specifically. But
Yes.
all I would say is this, you have to understand that President Duterte has been president of the Philippines for the
Yeah.
last 6 years, and people must still show him respect. He's done so much for the Philippines, so much for the Filipino people, and I think he's had a fantastic presidency.
Yeah.
And of course, he has his own beliefs and his own views, and nobody knows that other than him. But all I would say is, the fact is that's politics, isn't it? You're always going to get bashing. You're
Yeah.
always going to get
Yeah.
critics. But the
Yeah.
fact is, BBM has never been disrespectful to any other politician. That's what I like. And regarding President Duterte, nobody can take away the fantastic job that he's done. I know that when he leaves office, I know it will be a very, very sad time indeed for many in the Philippines. I know he's achieved so much for the country. And I hope that he's honored for that. I hope he's remembered for that. And I hope he's respected for that.
Yes. Thank you very much. And very clearly sa atin lahat. But Mr. Malcolm, the big problem now is also in the social media, 'di ba? When it comes to you support Bongbong Marcos.
I think there's a lot of difficulties out there. I think, unfortunately,
Very.
we're in a world where there's these fact checkers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rappler,
Yeah, yeah.
Vera
Uh,
Files, and the
uh,
fact checkers. And I
yeah,
know we've had some conversations off air as well.
yeah,
But I'd like to make the point that we all have to be very careful.
yeah.
Facebook is a very valuable platform. Your YouTube channel is a very valuable platform for sharing
Yes,
information. But there'll be people who are quick to cut you down and quick to say it's moderated or fake news or partially
yes,
true or misinformation. So unfortunately, we live in a day and age, although we think there is freedom of speech, there
yes,
isn't truly freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is moderated. And if it doesn't
yes,
fit their version of facts, it's labeled as fake news. This is the big issue for me.
yes. And now the practicing from the another candidates supporters. I did not saying from the candidate. I saying is from supporters. This cancel culture. What is your opinion for the cancel culture?
The problem is, it's not a problem, but politics is always divided. It even divides families. There are families bickering over who would be the next president.
Yes,
I don't really like this cancel culture. It's like you're trying to quash people's freedom of speech. People should be able to support who they want without being bashed, without being accused or labeled or called a liar or whatever. I know people are passionate. I understand that. But people should be allowed their freedom of choice, freedom of expression. And I find it difficult to hear and very upsetting to hear
Yeah.
that certain organizations within the Philippines are also trying to cancel people's freedom of choice in who they vote for. And that's something that really, really concerns me. The Philippine public should have the freedom of expression, the freedom of choice, the freedom to vote for their preferred candidate, and nothing should cancel that democratic right, which is so important in the Philippines and around the world.
Thank you very much. It's a big problem for the cancel culture. uh, if uh, if the BBM defenders, fact checkers, also every day, every minute, they pack even the true is true or false or whatever. Then if um, the BBM social media defenders is the very difficult right now.
Well, they're even shutting down whole channels, aren't they? Not only one channel. If they suspect something is not 100% accurate, or if they're unsure of anything, I think
Yeah.
people have to understand that the time of the late Ferdinand Marcos, President Ferdinand Marcos, there was no social media. Records were not kept the way they were now. So it's very hard for people in the 21st century. It's really hard for the millennials to really understand how it was in those times. And a lot of people, and I know Marcos loyalists will say these were brilliant times. And of course, nobody can dispute that either way. So these fact checkers, it's like they're trying to change history, isn't it? These fact checkers are trying to change people's views or skew people's opinions. I wonder whether they're getting paid to do that. I wonder whether there are people like the biased media who are paying people to cancel out the Marcos era. But you can't change history. President Marcos built a lot of great infrastructures that are still standing now: the PICC, the Children's General Hospital, the Heart Hospital, and many other buildings and foundations that are still standing to this day and are very much part of the history and culture of the Philippines, and nobody can take that away. No, not Rappler, not any Vera files. Nobody can take away the facts, the concrete facts. The buildings that were built by President Ferdinand Marcos, the late President Ferdinand Marcos, are still standing and standing strong.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Malcolm. This big problem. Anyway, Mr. Malcolm Conlan, thank you for being so involved in our Philippines politics. How about the UK? How's your politics in UK?
Do you really have to ask me that?
have different in the Philippines or what? I ask on.
I think the thing is, if we're talking back about COVID, I think the thing is people in the Philippines are generally disciplined. So when the government issues a directive, or when the local barangay issues a directive, people would follow it. And that's why the Philippines seems to have done better than in the UK. So many people are not wearing masks in the UK. They're talking about their freedoms, and they don't have to wear masks. They don't have to have the vaccine, etc. I know that happens in the Philippines as well, but I think the problem that we have in the UK is that of hypocrisy. The Boris Johnson has told people, there's the government have said you can't leave, you can't go to a party, you can't meet with more than 6 people outside, and yet time and time again there are 16 parties at least, one of them with 100 people in his back garden. If you make the rules, you need to follow them. And I think this is also what President Duterte said about maybe the police, about drinking, getting drunk and everything else. The public have to be able to respect those in authority. And the problem in the UK is that the people who make the rules are actually the ones breaking the rules, and that's not good. So I think at the moment, politics in the UK is kind of in a mess, particularly with the Conservative Party and particularly with Boris Johnson. And I think the Philippines seems to be better in that respect than the UK.
Yes. Okay. Na-nosebleed na ba kayo mga kabayan?
I'm seeing some messages here. Sorry, I'm looking at some of the messages, and yeah, I'll try my best anyway.
Yes. Anyway, you tell me, um, you support Bongbong Marcos, and I ask you why to want to support Bongbong Marcos. Now, this is my question. Okay, if BBM or if Bongbong Marcos wins, okay, you go to congratulate Bongbong Marcos personally.
I hope so. You know, I've already reached out to some of his team in the Philippines, and I hope that's the case. You know, it would be an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to shake his hand personally and congratulate him. You know, before President Duterte got elected, I wrote a letter to him and I publicly said that I wanted to meet him and shake his hand. And thankfully, thank God, my wish came true. And I have no doubt that before the end of the presidency of Bongbong Marcos, I have no doubt that I'll be shaking his hand and congratulating him. And I know that's going to happen. I can feel it in my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Same like PRRD, you meet personally President Duterte, right?
Correct, at the
Yes.
palace, and that was absolutely incredible. I'm very, very grateful to the people who made that happen. That was a once in a lifetime experience and such a privilege and honor. And I have no doubt that I'll meet BBM too. Of course, if he wants to, he might not want to meet me, but I'd like to meet him, put it that way.
Yes, thank you very much. And the problem now, Mr. Malcolm, Bongbong Marcos is too much, too much problem when it comes the disqualification, everything. So, Mr. Malcolm, what can you say, or what is your reaction about the disqualification case of Bongbong Marcos? Your personal opinion on.
So my personal opinion is this: nobody tried to disqualify him when he became a senator. Nobody tried to disqualify him when he was running for vice president. If these people, these loudmouth people, were going to disqualify him previously, why is it all of a sudden that they want to try and do that? You know, it should be for the Filipino people to decide, as I said earlier on, rather than somebody to deny him the chance, his rightful chance to become president. If that happens, I know there's going to be uproar, there's going to be anger, a lot of people are going to be upset. And I really don't think it's a political move. Maybe it'll be a point scoring move, but I would hate for that to happen. I think it will be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, thank you very much. And now I have co-host Miss Trixie Villa 11. Mr. Malcolm, do you remember
Hello,
Trixie Villa?
hi.
Yeah.
How are you?
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Malcolm. Good morning, good afternoon, and I'm so glad to be with you, sir. It's just that Mr. JDB is busy right now, so that's why I came up here to help with Mr. Jamar.
No worries. Excellent. Thank you. Great to see you. Great
Yeah.
questioning. And it's a real honor and privilege to once again be part of your show. And I'm looking, it's awesome. We have at least 220 people who are chatting, who are interacting. I don't want to keep on looking down on my phone, but there are so many questions. I'll let you do the monitoring, not me. But I'd like to send my very best wishes to everybody who's taking part. Many congratulations and thank you so much.
Yes, they're so glad to see you and to watch you over, sir, because I know they're following you in your YouTube channel too.
That's awesome. Thank you. And of course, I've just been told that people are putting my videos on TikTok, and apparently one of them has been viewed 1 million times. I'm not even massively into TikTok, but that's kind of really crazy.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Magtanong ka na, Trix. Ano ba tanong mo? A question to Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Because later, Mr. Malcolm, I want to see you all the presidential candidate, and what is your own reaction
Yes.
every candidate. So later. But now, Miss Trix Sevilla,
Yes,
She
sir.
have a question to you regarding to our hot issue in the Philippines. Okay,
Go ahead.
Flexibilia and one-on-one with Mr. Malcolm.
Okay, I'm so glad to have Mr. Malcolm with us. So first of all, I know that we will be asking you, sir, about the interviews. I know you're on with the interviews with several with all the candidates. Mr. Ping Lacson, we have Lenny, Adam Lenny, and Pacquiao. So we'll talk, we'll react. We want you to react on every with every answers that they gave us during the interviews with Mr. Abunda and also with DCRH. So, whom with the among the president would you want to comment first, sir? Whom would
I
you
would
want to?
leave.
Yes,
I
go
would
ahead.
say one thing. Out of all the candidates, to be honest, I haven't really focused on Ping Lacson. I must be honest. I haven't
Okay.
really watched any of his interviews because he's not somebody who concerns me. I don't think he could be the next president. You know, you've only got to look at either who is controversial or who you think stands a fighting chance. And with the greatest respect to him, because I don't really know him, he's not somebody who strikes to me as being very, very controversial. So I haven't really had time to watch any of his interviews. But regarding the other candidates, who would you like to start with first?
Maybe we'll start with whom would you choose? So is it BBM first or Miss Lenny? Because there are Miss Lenny. I mean, Aling Lenny is the one of the contender, and also let's say Mr. Escomoreno, Escomagoso, or which would you want to choose first, sir? We'll go on
Again, I
Miss
haven't really watched
the other
Isco.
candidates.
Yeah, so what I'd say is I haven't really watched Isco, but what I would say is this, you know, as Manila Mayor, I think he's done a fantastic job. He has a very dynamic personality. He's very good on camera. He's got the looks. He's good looking. He seems to be having the right attitude. But all I would say is this, a lot of people have commented that it's maybe too early for him to run as president this time. You know, I'm not in the Philippines, so it'll be really hard for me to kind of give 100% view. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure he's done an excellent job as mayor of Manila. And maybe one day he will become president, but not to upset any of his supporters. But I don't think that if you look at the polls alone, although he's doing very, very well, I think BBM is topping him. And I believe BBM will come forward, but God forbid if BBM was to be disqualified, that might, I hope he's not, that might be a different story. And then Isco could be very close within the mix.
So you would bet for Esco rather than Miss Aling Lugao or Miss Lenny Robredo?
No, not at all. I haven't even commented on Lenny yet. If we're going to come on to Lenny, I would say this, you know, you can't take away from her that she has done some good. You know, I've been debating with a lot of her supporters. I'm meeting around various places where I've worked. And some of them will say that she's feeding the poor. She's distributing goods, particularly in the COVID, where she was giving out these SATS probes and these medicines. You know, nobody can take that away from her. That's really good. She's also able to get funding coming in, you know, by being in the front of a campaign. She's able to get funds that are helping the Philippine people. Good luck to her. That's awesome. But you cannot take away from the fact the blunders that she'd made before. Recently, we celebrated is the wrong word. We commemorated Holocaust War Memorial and the Holocaust Day. We commemorated the Holocaust Day. And, you know, the fact is I have to go back to the time where she was standing in front of the Holocaust War Memorial with her family. And there she was smiling brightly, and all of her team were kind of posing like there was on some kind of reality show at something which is so significant, something which is so heart-wrenching. You know, the fact is that sometimes she doesn't really conduct herself in such a way that is is right. You know, she comes out with
Mhm.
things and statements. I'm not saying she's like anyone else. You know, we all make mistakes, but the problem is her slip-ups are really big gaffes. And, you know, people want somebody, a leader who's got a lot of political experience, who's not going to make these gaffes. And you're worried what comes out of her mouth next. And this is one of the issues.
Okay, sir. And where is RT? There's no sound.
I can hear the sound. Is there no sound
Okay.
on the...
It's not. I mean,
Okay.
I don't hear. Okay.
Okay na. Ano ba, si Mr. Malcolm.
Yeah.
Yan. Binigyan ko lang kayo ng pagkakataon dalawa us to him one-on-one because we know everything. Mr. Malcolm, he know everything about the situation in the Philippines
Yeah, because
because
he's on. I mean,
his
he's
wife
following
is
our politics. Yeah.
Filipina. Yeah, Filipina, pusong Pinoy. Right, Mr. Malcolm?
Correct.
And
From San Carlos,
yeah.
Pangasinan.
Yes, from Pangasinan. Oh, really? Pangasinan is
Oh, wow.
Trixie is from Pangasinan also.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh,
Whereabouts?
where in Pangasinan, sir?
San Carlos, Pangasinan.
Oh, San Carlos. So
Where-
it's
and-
close to our. Yeah.
Where are you? San Carlos.
Oh, ayan na, Tagalog na.
Saan ako? We're in the boundary of Pangasinan. It's the last town of Pangasinan before
okay.
the Nueva Ecija. So we're
Okay, yeah.
close.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Fantastic. I want to move back to Lenny when you ask me certain questions because there's a lot to
Okay,
say. But you go ahead and ask me the questions and I'll answer.
Okay, so are we gonna move on to Miss Lenny about your reaction with?
Anyway, Mr. Malcolm, you reserved your answer
Okay.
to LENI ROBREDO because later I told you I give you some picture all candidates, then you react
Then give your
or your
reaction.
personal give your
Like a fast
personal
talk.
reaction. Yes, yeah,
Reaction
from
plus
fast
talk.
yeah. Same like fast talk. But Mr. Malcolm, too much question from live chat to you, and they want to ask you everything. To I allow to all question from the live chat, and please answer. Then
So
okay,
we'll pick a question among
we'll pick
those questions
yeah.
among
Okay,
the
first
from
question.
the live chat, sir. Yes.
Yeah, first question from Tita Pia de Caspel from Paris, France. She's a question, Mr. Malcolm. Do you think BBM has the capacity to uplift the life is Filipino and the country even to opposition level him weak a person? Same like President Duterte told him
Which one?
before she's weak. He's weak. He is weak, not she. He is weak.
I don't believe, I may be wrong, correct me on this, but I don't believe President Duterte used the name of BBM directly. People have argued that he may have implied that he was talking about BBM, but some people have said he wasn't talking about BBM, so I'll probably not comment on that. Can you put the question on the screen once more, please, so I can answer it directly?
Okay. Thank you. And
Yeah.
okay. Any question from
No, it's the
live
same
chat?
question.
No,
I just wanted to go back to that same
Gemma,
question.
Mr. Malcolm is asking to put the
Yes.
question of Miss.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Thank
one.
you. So do you think BBM has the capacity to uplift the life of Filipinos? Yes, of course he has. He understands politics. He comes from a wealth of political experience. He knows what's right for the country. He talks about restoring Philippine pride. He talks about people being proud to be Filipinos. There you have the opposition who are talking negatively about their own country, even going back to the time of President Duterte. People say they're embarrassed to live in the Philippines, there's killings going on and everything else. How can you encourage tourism? How can you encourage international investors and international visitors if you're going to put down your own country? BBM is talking about lifting up the country, and he has firm plans in terms of agriculture, in terms of what Filipinos need to do. And I know that he will do that. And he's not weak at all. He's very strong. A weak person or a weak leader is a leader who'll be critical of others. A strong leader is somebody who won't put down others, but will do what he can to achieve the best for the country. And I believe, Pia, that BBM has the capacity to do this, and he clearly has the capacity to uplift the life of Filipinos because he has decades of political experience. Not only that, through his father, he's seen his father in certain situations. He's modeled from his father, so he has that pedigree, he has that political experience, and I have no doubt that will help to improve the lives of Filipinos.
Thank you. Okay, the next question from Engineer Rodolfo Reyes from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is his question. Host, please ask to Mr. Conlan. Does he believe that when BBM went as president, it was saying that the 1986 People Power Revolution was a failure?
No, not at all. The way I see it is this, you cannot change history. You can only move to the future. You can't, people talk about people power, and a lot of people around the world actually respect people power. Because what it is it's not fighting, it's not shooting or killing. The Philippine people have this great ability to stand up and be counted. They have this great ability to stand up in masses and show what they want. And I'm sure if BBM gets disqualified, I have no doubt we will experience another people power in the Philippines, because there'll be millions of people around the Philippines who'll be standing up. They're not going to be violent. They're not going to be in anything like that. But what they are going to do is they're going to stand up. They're going to be counted. And that's the thing about the Philippines. There isn't any need for any violent protest, but people stand up. And regarding the 1986 people power, you can't change history. You can't change anything to do with that. You can't say it's not for me to comment if it was a failure or not. All I would say is I believe BBM will win as the next president. And when he does, I believe that endorses the good work that's been done by him and by his family.
Okay, sir. Before going to the next question, before we're going to proceed, I have an interesting question here for Mr. Malcolm. Mr. Adolfo Hogan is asking, why did you become pro-Duterte or pro-BBM supporter? So why did you become pro-Duterte and pro-BBM supporter, sir? They're asking you why.
Yeah. I have answered that a few times before, and just very, very briefly, the fact is, I've got to be honest, before Duterte was elected, I wasn't actually a supporter of his. I was listening to the fake news, the fake media, and then my wife started to watch some YouTube channels where all the good work that President Duterte was doing, or the candidate Duterte, he's not afraid to stand up. I remember the time during the typhoon where he was interviewed. He's not afraid to be honest. He says it how it is. Yes, he uses colorful language, but the thing is, he stands firm in his beliefs, and he wants the very best for the Philippines and the Philippine people. And regarding BBM, you only have to see the way he carries himself. A lot of the other politicians are critical, and they're mudslinging each other, and they'll come out and they'll say bad things about other politicians. But what I like about BBM is that he commands respect, but also he shows respect to others, which I think is so important. And look at this, if people are going to try and put someone down, if people are trying to stop somebody as running for president, why is that? Are they scared? Are they scared the Philippines is finally going to get better? And I think there's some kind of game being played by the opposition so they can continue with the way they've been before. And I think this is the Philippines is on the brink of an amazing future to continue the legacy of President Duterte through BBM. And there's going to be so many forces who are going to try and change this future.
Okay. Natanong na rin kanina yan at nasagot na rin. Question for Mr. Malcolm to how to become. Now, Factom, meron dito nga tanong, Ito. As a good observer, what a problem do you think the next president should prioritize?
They should continue the legacy of President Duterte in terms of a better life or a comfortable life for all Filipinos. The number one priority is to ensure that Filipinos have a good future. But not only that, I think President Gloria said this when I was watching her in London, when I got the opportunity to meet her, in that leaving the Philippines in search of a better life should be a choice and not a necessity. And I think this is what Boy Abundas was talking about as well, where he said the moral cost of splitting up the Filipino family. And I think what should be prioritized is people to have a better chance of future, a better chance of success, and to get out of poverty. You know, the fact is there's so many Filipinos who can't even afford the next meal. They don't even know where the next meal is coming from. And I think this should be the priority, said bringing the Philippines forward. And I know BBM will have many plans to make sure that happens.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The next, please read this question.
It's quite funny, actually, because I saw this last question from Elia, which I was actually going to bring up myself because I think it's a very good question. Hi, Sir Malcolm. In all honesty, what do you think about Philippine politics as a whole? Cheers. You know, I've got this issue in that the vice president and the president can come from different political parties. That doesn't happen in the UK under our political system. I think it seems ridiculous to me that you'll have a vice president who's supposed to deputize for the president, and yet they have completely different political views and come from a completely different political background. And I'm not sure if I like the idea of people not being so accountable. You know, a parliamentary system means every week the prime minister comes into parliament and takes questions from MPs around the country. And I think that's a better system. And I hope one day the Philippines will move towards that system. We can't change how it is now. There isn't time to do that. But I would like, and I hope we'll have a federal parliamentary system in the Philippines.
Okay. Okay. So, yung iba po, later na ha, masasagot mamaya po uli. Because going to another topic or the same like a past talk. I told you, Mr. Malcolm, and Trixie Villa is, she's going to ask you to all presidential candidate. So, example,
What's the question?
Trixie, ikaw ang magtanong kung bakit
Anong tatanong natin?
regarding dito sa ating ayan.
Okay.
Mr. Lloyd D. Guzman is a presidential aspirant. Okay, Trixie.
Okay, sir. So what can you say about, fast talk, what can you say about Mr. Lloydie?
With the greatest respect, I've never heard of him.
Okay, never heard. Okay,
Never
fast.
heard, huh? Never heard. Okay.
So never heard
Next.
about this presidential
Never.
candidate. Okay. Next
No.
picture.
Next picture, please. Okay. I think Ping LACSON.
Yeah,
Okay.
previously, I think I'd say the same thing. You know, he's not a candidate I've concentrated on because I don't think he will be the next president. So, you know, it's not something that really bothers me. You know, I haven't really listened to his interview. I don't really know enough about him to speak about him. But what I would say is if he's not in the running, why would I really be interested in hearing about him?
So,
I say not in the running. Of course, he's in the running.
Yeah,
I mean, in terms of
yes.
popularity.
So it means, Mr. Malcolm, you're saying is if Bongbong Marcos not run for presidential, you support Ping LACSON?
No, if Bongbong Marcos isn't able to run for president, which I think would be a crying shame and a great injustice, if Bongbong Marcos isn't able to run for president, I don't think publicly at this stage I would be prepared to come out with an alternative. But let's just say there's some I wouldn't want and some that I would want, but that is quite controversial.
Yes, thank you. Okay, how about the Manny Pacquiao?
Next picture, yeah.
I like Manny Pacquiao. I got to meet him in the Senate. I think he's a very honest man with a very a humble family. I believe he's a man of God, which I also respect. I have respect for him. I remember when I was at the Senate, there was a massive queue of people with various cancers or whatever who are asking for help, and I know he helps a lot of people. I know in terms of him being a boxer, he brought a great deal of pride to the Philippines. I remember back that each time he fought, there was actually zero crime in the Philippines. I know so many people were proud, waving the Philippine flag, and now so many people will be critical of him. The issue that I have is, although that he is a Christian, and I respect that, I firmly believe that there was a separation of church and state. And I believe that religion, although the Philippines is predominantly a Catholic country, I don't believe religion should come into it all the time. I don't believe as a politician you should constantly talk about God, because not all of the people who support you would be religious or even interested in God. And I do worry that we're going to go back to yesteryear where everything's going to be based around religion. And, you know, religion can be quite divisive in the Philippines. Good luck to him. He's doing a fantastic job. I know people who know him very well, and good luck to him. But as president, I believe he's going to spend so much money on that opportunity to become president. And if you look at the polls, I believe he was polling at 9%. I may be wrong, but I don't think he would achieve this goal to be president. But again, I have respect for him, and I would say nothing bad about him.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, respect, Mr. Malcolm Conlan. And the next is very interesting, Mr. Malcolm. Very interesting.
Where do I start?
So
What they call
the mother of
the mother of
Philippines. Philippine
uh,
mother, or nanay ng lahat. I mean,
yes,
nanay ng
Hold on a minute. You're saying the mother of the Philippines. With the greatest respect, I still remember the UN video where she went and
that's
well,
their
the thing-
claim. But
well,
not
well, no,
everybody
but
is
no,
agreed
I'm
to
saying, yeah.
agree to that.
My point is this: people would call her the mother of the Philippines, but would the mother of the Philippines go to the international media or international media organizations and be critical of your own country? Would the mother of the Philippines go and say that they want the ICC, they want to rejoin the ICC? The fact is that LENI, as I said to you, she does some good work. I won't doubt that. But the fact is, if you want to be successful, you shouldn't be bashing others. You shouldn't be criticizing others. Focus on your own campaign as opposed to bashing other candidates. And, I think she's had far too many blunders as far as I'm concerned. And, I don't like this whole thing. And one thing I would remember is the time of the COVID pandemic, where I think it was like these LENI buses, and LENI's buses bring people into work, etc. It shouldn't all be about her. Every single time there's an opportunity, she'll be standing there with a camera and people will be taking pictures of her. That's not what it should be about. If you want to help people, if you want to do charity, you do things silently, not publicly. And I do worry there's a lot of PR opportunities, and I do worry about that. But then again, what are her policies? When she joined the board of drugs, she was only there for 16 days and she found out lots of information. She spread that information to other people. She's like a minister without portfolio. The fact is, when BBM becomes president, Vice President Inday Duterte will be offered a very important role within the cabinet. Regards to LENI, she's supposed to be the vice president. She's supposed to support the president of the Philippines. And I don't believe any time during the Duterte administration has she ever been completely supportive of President Duterte. And then again, she's going to go on to be the next president? With
Exactly.
a great no thanks.
Exactly, that's what she did for the whole year of the duration of
yes,
that she's being a vice president. So yeah.
What is some narrative of LENI Robredo?
Well, I only look back at this interview with Boy Abunda. The fact is, when she spoke about BBM, she said very quickly, liar. You can't accuse someone of being a liar. That's too much.
Yeah, it's that's too much and negative campaigning, right? and
Yes.
seem like a victim. Seem like a
Yeah.
victim. The next is interesting. Um, Mr. Isko Moreno.
I don't think people should underestimate him. He has a great following, almost like a film star, like a matinee idol. And, things people have to understand that the Philippines is very much based on personality. And many people in Manila would have seen his good work in terms of improving Manila, in terms of everything that he's done. So I don't think people should underestimate him. And I do worry that if BBM is disqualified, Isco stands a chance. And you can't turn away from that. I haven't really listened to his interview with Boy Abunda, but I did listen to his interview with Tony Gonzaga, and I believe he's a very good speaker. He has some very good policies, and he does stand a chance. And I think if he's doing good work in Manila, then that's great. But I just think it's a little bit too early for him to be president if you compare it to the political experience of some of the other candidates.
Yeah. And the question is uh, only one term or 3 years for
Yeah,
the local
quite right.
local position, and now he decide to run for president.
Maybe he was pushed into it. Maybe his supporters wanted him to run as president. And, again, I have respect for him. I'd like to meet him too. I'd like to shake his hand and thank him for everything he's doing for the people of Manila. I have nothing but respect for him. I just think maybe it's a little bit too early. And while BBM is running for president, I think Isco stands very little chance of becoming president.
Yes. Do you think have at the back to push Isko Moreno?
I don't know. I just feel that there's going to be people who want him to run as president, and I'm sure he will be president one day. I can say that categorically. I do think he'll be president one day. I think that's also
Not now.
right, but I think not this time.
No, not this time. Not this time. One day. We don't know when.
Hmm.
Okay. The next, last, Bongbong Marcos.
What can I say other than that he's carried himself in such a great manner? He's not dissing out disrespect. He's not being rude to other candidates. He's carried his way. He's carried himself in an honorable way. And there's lots of people who are criticizing. There's lots of people who are making up lies about him. There are lots of people who are changing the facts of those times. I understand, and I have to say that he's a member of the Marcos family, and there are people who are against the Marcoses. You can't change that. But, he's standing as a candidate in the next presidential elections. It would be wrong for some people to say, look at this, look at what happened in history. The fact is, judge him by how he is now, judge him by what he's achieved. I think he'll be an excellent candidate as the next president.
Yes. Me also. Thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. For me, the best and most qualified for the
Yeah,
next
completely right. I
leader.
wouldn't
Yeah.
disagree with you. There are so many people who've commented today. It's not for me to kind of pick out questions, but yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for watching, for interacting, and go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Okay. 1 minute. Question. Okay. From the live viewers, I agree what you said about Robredo. Ma'am Doc Marie from Japan. Yan. I agree with what you said about Robredo. Yan. Thank you very much. And sabi dito, Rafael, nako. Nako, hindi ko naintindihan kasi English. Can someone translate what he said?
I think you need to do a review afterwards. I think when I finished, I think you need to summarize kind of what I've said to those people who couldn't quite understand. And also to all of the people watching, I'm very happy for them to reach out to me, to follow me on my social media. Malcolm Conlan, they're quite happy to do that. I have an authentic presence on Facebook, and I'm happy to debate.
Yes.
You know, even to my critics, I'm happy to speak to them. I'm not going to show them any disrespect. I'm not going to be rude about anybody. I'm happy to talk to people face to face.
Ayan. Okay. Have question from Adolfo Holgin from the live chat. Okay, from live chat. Sir Conlan, what's your reaction regarding to the volunteers of LENI supporters on distribution of the uncooked rice, um, parades on the sachets pack of the poorest of the poor, same like lugaw.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with feeding the poor.
Yeah.
But if you feed the poor with these little packs of food, you know, it's not long lasting. You feed them one day, you're out for the cameras, you hand out lugaw to everybody. But what happens the next day, the day after that, and the day after that? You know, it might be a great camera opportunity. It might be a great initiative, but it's not long lasting. And what's long lasting is improvements in the Philippines that take a long time to do. And rather than criticizing, can you do a better job? This is the point. But I always remember back to the anemic spaghetti or the pale spaghetti that she was then distributing on behalf of the person who cooked the spaghetti. You know, that was a camera opportunity, photo opportunity. What did that really achieve? There's nothing wrong with handing out food. There's nothing wrong with handing out medicines. I applaud that. I admire that. But why not do that secretly? Why do that where the press are there? And why does it become a big camera opportunity or media opportunity?
Yes. Okay, thank you. And a lot of question from live chat. Okay. Ito, host, please don't forget to ask him, to Mr. Malcolm. My question is, if he knew, the legacy of the former President Ferdinand Marcos.
I don't know if you're watching at the beginning of the show, but I've clearly said already that I do understand the legacy. I understand the infrastructure build. I understand all the good things that in the Marcos era. But what I would say is, you know, I don't understand everything. I'll admit that. You know, the problem is a lot of news is censored around that era. But what I would say is, because I don't know 100% the history, why am I going to remember certain things now? Why am I going to stop the next presidential candidate from running just because of the alternative facts that people have put together in the past? I can only go on what I know. And okay, let's look at the Thriller in Manila fight with Ali. You know, the fact is that brought pride to the Philippines. That put the Philippines on the world stage. Marcos was very clever in terms of putting together that fight, in terms of showcasing the Philippines to the world. This is very clear to me that Marcos wanted to show the Philippines to the world, wanted to show that Philippine pride, which is very much what his son is talking about now, restoring Philippine pride. And I have no doubt that the late President Ferdinand E. Marcos wanted to restore pride in the Philippines and, of course, do things to showcase the country to the world.
Okay, ayan. Okay, and okay, the next, okay, mga kaibigan, I will say thank you again for teaching us to write and speak English when I was elementary. Mhm. And Mr. Malcolm from Japan, you have a very good heart, Mr. Malcolm. We can feel it in the way you speak about President Duterte and BBM and about the
Can I just say
Filipinos.
something about that? In that there'll be a lot of people now who'll be quick to bash President Duterte. There'll be some people who've sadly gone against President Duterte, and I find that very sad. You know, you can't change the history. The build infrastructure program of President Duterte has done so much good and will continue to do so much good. But of course, because of COVID, some of their plans they have to not put on hold, but because of the costs, you know, maybe they couldn't achieve exactly what they wanted to achieve in the time. But the fact is, President Duterte had some fantastic plans for the country. And, you know, you can't change how he is. You know, people elected him as a president. He does sometimes use colorful language, but you can quite clearly see he cares about the Philippines. He hates corruption, he hates drugs, and wants to make the Philippines a better place. And people shouldn't forget that.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. And you are very good analysis for the real situation in the Philippines regarding and politics. You are the good analysis, and I like your comment on Isko Moreno because Isko Moreno very the poll is very small and like number two or number three. So now I understand and he have a secret card for for this position. Uh,
Mm.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, people shouldn't discount him. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I should say this or even I hate to say this, but people shouldn't underestimate Vice President Lenny. The fact is, people shouldn't say she's not going to win, she's going to completely fail, and she's this and she's that. But there's a lot of silent voters out there. There's a lot of people who remain quiet now. They may be doing certain things in the polls, but on the day, polls are not the key factor. We really don't know. So, these kind of shows are very important because they tell people the truth, and they must continue to make sure that people support the right candidate.
Yeah, and everything we know, the Isko Moreno is this coming May 9 election is number two. I think is a very difficult for this the bracket for the election because we know the BBM's majority now in terms of poll, but need to understand all the people in the Philippines. Isko Moreno, what's she doing under the ground?
Yeah, no,
Right?
no, of course, yeah, and I understand that, and I've read comments on that, and I don't really want to comment personally on that. You can only see the photographs of Isco appearing with these various personalities, and it's not for me to comment on that because I don't know enough about it. And it's very easy again for me to bash certain candidates, but
Yes.
BBM didn't bash certain candidates, so why would I? I can make little jokes, I can say little kind of anecdotes if you like, but you know what? I don't think we should disrespect anybody who's running as the next president. I don't believe it's right. I don't believe it's right for me as a foreigner to show any disrespect to any other candidate either.
Yeah. Yeah. Good disrespect. Number one, respect to other candidate because after the May 9 elections, move on to all, and uh, we'll see what's who's the president win, and let's see to what's he doing or they doing
If
to
if you if
country.
you, if you wouldn't mind, sir, can I just ask? Can I answer one question? If you look, there's a question from Marilyn Mariano that's just come up
Yeah,
now.
this one.
Yeah, can I comment on that if you wouldn't mind? Do
Yeah, yeah.
you agree with me why the Philippines still is a third world country because too much politics? I have to take you up on this, and I have to say I hate the terminology third world. It means that you've got first world, second world, third world. You're putting your own country down. I know a lot of people use the terminology third world, but that's very much from the Cold War era. That's very much from the past. The Philippines is a developing country, and under President Duterte is developing very fast. The Filipino people are not a third world people. They are industrious. They are fantastically qualified. They're forward thinking. They're resourceful. You only have to look in the Philippines. They will find a way to survive. Look at the pandemics. Look at the typhoons, where the Filipino people are a people who are smiling, a happy people. They are certainly not third world. Just because there is poverty in the Philippines doesn't mean that they're not a resourceful people. I would say developing and developing fast. I don't like the terminology third world. I don't like the fact that some Filipinos put down their own country by calling the Philippines a third world country. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now Trix Sibilia 11 is
It's back.
yeah. And
I think you
Trix
need to switch your
Sibilia,
screen.
Trix Sibilia, yeah,
Okay.
Trix Sibilia.
Let's be all
Yeah.
go like that.
I'm so sorry. I got lost. I got disconnected,
Trix,
sir.
pakiano mo, pakidiretso mo yung pakidiretso mo yung video mo, nakatagilid ka.
I
Yan,
Ah,
know.
okay na.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I guess they can.
Trixie
I got
Villa,
disconnected.
Trixie Villa's internet connection is very poor, very weak.
Panic.
Trixie,
Okay.
please,
Yes,
please,
sir.
nakatagilid ka, nakatagilid ka.
I got disconnected.
Nakakatagilid ka.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay na kanina eh. Yan, I'm sorry for the technical problem. Trixie Villa 11. And watching from KSA, maraming salamat. Host, please tell him. Yan, okay. Josa, host, please tell him. We are not underestimating LENIs, but they underestimate us, the BBM supporters, calling us stupid and bobo and calling BBM as addict was
Yeah,
are
I
just
completely right. I think that's absolutely disgusting. I don't think that anyone should be underestimated. I don't think anyone should be disrespected. The supporters of BBM have got just as much right to comment on politics and have got just as much right to express their personal opinion as any other candidate. I think if BBM can show respect to other candidates, why can't
yeah,
the other opposition of BBM show
yeah.
mutual respect?
Yeah. And this is a way of negative campaigning and propaganda, right?
Yes. And it's a real plague of the Philippines. It's been continuing since the beginning of time. And I just think it's very, very sad. Philippine politics is based on personality and who's got the most money to run. And that seems such a shame. And I hope one day that can change, maybe through a parliamentary system.
Yeah. And Mr. Malcolm, I invite some of blogger, BBM blogger. This name is Karunungan at Kaalaman to give some question to you. Karunungan Kaalaman, akit ka rito, andyan yung link nasa baba na. Because JDB Comment Pro Filipino is now he's have technical problem. So Karunungan Kaalaman is same like JDB. So some question he give you and Trixie Villa, go ahead. Nagpa-feedback ka eh. Okay,
What
go ahead.
about?
Okay na. Sige na.
Okay, I'm okay.
I believe, as you say, we're having somebody else joining us on this live stream. Just let me know when they're ready.
Yeah. Yan game Trixie Villa.
But
Nanosebleed ka
getting.
na rin, Trixie? Nanosebleed ka na rin ngayon?
I'm lost because I have two screen in here, so I
Yeah.
don't know what. It stopped when I stop. So
Go ahead if you
what's
have any more questions.
Yes,
do
go
I
ahead. And
have any more
we have
questions?
22 minutes
22
before
minutes
to
more to
end.
go.
Yeah, more to because Mr. Malcolm Conlan have another
Commitment.
schedule. So yes, okay. So have another. Okay, go ahead, Trixie.
Hold on a second. I don't know where you stop, so I don't know what to ask. And
You ask.
I know
You ask
you.
everything.
Okay, so I know you're done asking about Mr. Conlan's reaction regarding those pictures and comments on those pictures regarding the presidential candidates. So I hold on a second.
Yeah, may question daw si may question daw si
Sino?
si Pactom. Pactom, please comment mo again para mabasa
Okay.
namin yung question mo kasi nalalagpasan eh. Hindi naman
Questions.
makita namin lahat ng mga question.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for
Yeah.
that.
So
Okay.
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 So what's the question? I let me.
Ella Fernandez nakaka-notes grabe Pero
Yeah.
Mr. Malcolm Conlan,
Actually,
everything you
Mr.
ask him, kahit
Mhm.
Tagalog, he answered for
He,
all the
yeah.
he answered for all the question kahit Filipino language. Gusto niyo magtanong ako sa kanya kung anong magtanong ako kay Mr. Malcolm, Filipino language? Okay. Para mapatunayan natin. Mr. Malcolm,
Eh,
ito yung tanong
Actually,
ito yung tanong
uh,
ko, Mr. Malcolm.
okay.
Marami nagsasabi na kayo daw ay Briton at hindi naman kayo
Okay.
Pilipino, pero bakit kayo ah, merong concern sa Pilipinas?
Well, let me just answer that. You know, I love the Philippines with all my heart. I've been to the Philippines more than 55 times over 3 decades. I feel that I'm most at home when I'm in the Philippines. I find the Filipino to be a loving people, a hardworking, caring, and I believe the Philippines is one of the greatest countries in the world. And that's the answer, I guess.
Yan. Tignan niya. May nagtanong.
Yeah.
Nagtanong mga kabayan. Bago ko,
Yeah. Let
naunahan
me.
kita magtanong, Francis Leo Marcos. Naunahan kita magtanong, sorry. Naunahan kita. I'm sorry ha. Naunahan kita. Yung iniisip mo, naisip ko na. Natanong niya na ha. Si Mr. Marco Conlan, kaya siya nagkakaroon ng mga topic tungkol sa mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas because malapit sa kanyang puso kung ano ang mga nangyayari sa ating bansa. So, hindi lang porket siya ay hindi Pilipino, so mas mabuti pa na yung ibang lahi o ibang nationality may concern sa Pilipinas. The very, very sad for this country is hindi tayo lahat nagkakaisa at yung iba walang concern sa Pilipinas. Right, Mr. Malcolm? Mr. Malcolm is very
Yeah.
appreciated
Okay.
because
Yeah.
even British nationality, so very much to Mr. Malcolm Conlan to concern.
I
about
think there'll be
the-
sadly, there'll be some OFWs, maybe they'll go abroad, maybe they'll live in a different country, maybe they'll forget about home, they'll forget about about their country. You know, of course they'll send money, but what I mean is they say they're not so concerned because they're living abroad now and they're not
Yeah.
really interested in Philippine politics. But I truly believe it's the responsibility of all Filipinos to very much support their country, love their country, talk about their country to all their friends, talk about how wonderful the Philippines is. I think any criticism of anyone in the Philippines, I think, is putting down their own country. And with the greatest respect, I think it's the ultimate duty of every Philippine citizen to support their country. If I can support the Philippines as a foreigner, how much more for Filipinos themselves?
Okay. Thank you very much. Sabi ni Francis Leo Marcos, kung makakaboto ka sa Pinas, sino boboto mo, ang presidente o vice presidente? Natanong na Francis Leo
BBM and
Marcos.
LENI.
Natanong
sorry,
na.
BBM and LENI, sorry. What's that? Who would I vote for? BBM and Sara Duterte.
Yes. And
Okay.
he also wife in Filipina wife. Okay? So, butante ho sila dyan sa UK. So, wag na ho natin tanong yung mga negative question. Okay? Then, Mr. Malcolm, Ariel Wonders 18 have a question for you. Mr. Conlan, do you believe it's only a strategy of Duterte and Marcos for Duterte to deliberately put BBM down so as not to implicate BBM with the Duterte administration?
Wow, that's a very difficult question and one that I thought would be asked and one that I'd find it hard to answer. But what I can say is this, you know, we don't know President Duterte's mind. We don't really know what he's thinking. We don't really know what his strategy is. And it would be wrong of me to comment other than to say, you know, President Duterte's daughter, Inday Sara Duterte, has very much aligned herself with Bongbong Marcos. You know, you can't change that. One of the Duterte family is very much supportive of BBM and aligned herself with BBM. I can't talk for her father, but all I can say is this. I know President Duterte wants the very best for the Philippines, very best for the Filipino people. And I'm sure, you know, there is a lot of political rhetoric out there. I wouldn't pay too much attention to every single thing what's said. But what I would say is this. I don't think President Duterte has publicly said Bongbong Marcos is not worthy. I don't think he has. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't actually heard that from the words of President Duterte.
Go ahead, Trix. Go ahead, Trix.
Okay, so we have another question here. Let me just add to what you're saying a while back, Mr. Gemma. Mr. Malcolm is a British, but he can understand when you talk to him in Tagalog. He can understand. The only thing is he will answer you in English. That's what
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah. I told you.
I can understand Taglish. If I was back home,
Yes,
I'd
I mean in
speak
Tagalog
Taglish.
he
Yeah.
fully understand.
He
And
will
we have another
understand. He
question
will
here.
answer. Yeah,
Do
everything.
you still believe that the closure of ABS-CBN is a curtailment of freedom of speech and freedom of press? You may not remember me, but when we had an argument about that issue on Facebook. So that is a question coming from GG Place, Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you for your question. You know, you can't change the fact, and I still stand strong on this. You can't
Okay.
change the fact
This
that
is question.
ABS-CBN is a network that was proliferating in all parts of the Philippines. You know, that channel was very, very strong. And wherever you went in the Philippines, it meant people would be able to catch up with the news. And I do feel sorry for those members of ABS-CBN employees who've lost their jobs. I think that's very sad. I'd also like to say that I can't change history. I can't change the fact that when I first learned about the Philippines, I was watching ABS-CBN shows like Showtime and ASAP. I can't change the fact that I know a lot of the personalities behind ABS-CBN. I know a lot of the artists. I know a lot of the performers, and I love the shows. I won't change that. You know, please don't say to me that, oh, you don't like ABS-CBN, you don't like support ABS-CBN. Because there's a lot of people who are critical of ABS-CBN, but they'll still watch Showtime, they'll still watch ASAP, they'll still watch their favorite artists. You can't change that. For anyone to say that would be hypocritical. I was in an ASAP event, and there were people there who maybe within that event, maybe saying things about ABS-CBN, but they were still watching the artists. They were still watching the shows. Let's not be hypocritical here. You know, the fact is, I've got to be true to my feelings. I love all the teleseries. I love all of the movies, the Star Cinema movies, and I won't change that. I'll openly admit that.
Okay, thank you. Trixie, hindi niya nawala yung camera mo.
And I won't change that. Okay, you've got some feedback there.
Nagpipidback ka, Trixie.
You might turn off your monitor, turn off your volume.
Nagpipidback ka. Ano bang monitor meron ka? Ayan. Okay na? Okay. Okay na. Okay. Now, thank you. Junil, Relbet, mabuhay ka hanggang gusto mo. Thank you very much. Some question here. Ayan, nasaan na ba? Ba't nawala?
Thank you very much. Some question
We're still getting feedback. I think somebody's got a monitor on or is listening on their phone. Just turn down the volume.
Mr. Malcolm, sino daw ang gusto mong maging Vice President kung hindi tumakbo si Sara Duterte?
I think she'll make an excellent vice president. I think she's got a lot of political experience through her father, through her time as mayor in Davao. She's done a fantastic job in Davao. She's been a very strong woman. And I think it would be nice to have another woman in senior position, even as president one day. You know, the fact is, and that's not LENI. I do think we need a strong woman. You know, I think that would be very, very good. And I know Sara Duterte is a strong woman, and I believe she'll be excellent as Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines. She has my full support.
Yan. Thank you very much. This hub question, Mr. Malcolm. Jocelyn Valenzuela. Okay. Question not from me, ha? Not from me, ha? Mr. Malcolm. I know. Trixie Villas sent to your advanced question, but okay. What is the equivalent of a special diploma in the Philippines? Education. I know your education system is more advanced compared to the Philippines. So, Mr. Malcolm.
I don't know much about the university system. I don't really know much about the educational system either in the Philippines or in the UK to that extent. All I could say is this: we're obviously talking about the period of study of Bongbong Marcos in Oxford University. You know, if your children are going to go to a prestigious university, of course you're going to be proud. Of course you're going to tell the world about that. And, you know, the fact is, if you go to a university, it must mean that you are already qualified. It must mean nobody gets accepted into a prestigious school unless they've got that standard of education. And the fact is, I don't know specifically about a special diploma, but the fact is, neither does anybody else. There's a lot of controversies. There's a lot of people saying, is it a genuine diploma? You know, we can't change history. The fact is, BBM went to Oxford. That's the end of it. That's a fact. There will be too many people now who may be being paid to say fake things about BBM, but you can't change the past. BBM is a qualified person, is a very experienced politician, and you know that's all I'll have to say on the matter. You know, there's all this whole thing about special diploma, and people have been writing to Oxford, and there are people who've been ganging up against BBM, and you know, we don't know, do we? You know, it's not for us to say. All I can say is I believe BBM is an educated man, a very experienced politician, and I'm sure he'll make an excellent president.
Yeah, thank you. I agree to you, Mr. Malcolm. That the Sara Duterte is a strong woman. Uh, Very different to other woman, but Sara Duterte is like a man for making decision like a man also. So strong woman, and she is attorney, right?
Yes.
Lawyer.
She's
Oh,
very, very qualified. And, you know, I
yeah,
remember the time where she was standing up for somebody who was going to break down some, I don't know, some catering establishment or something, a roadside establishment, and somebody tried to rip that down, and she kind of showed them who's boss. And I think that's very, very important. You know, she's not afraid. To be in politics, you have to be strong. You have to be courageous. And I know that Inday Sara Duterte is strong and courageous.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, dumako na ho tayo sa ating last part ng ating topic, and thank you very much po sa inyong lahat. Mr. Malcolm Conlan, please invite all the people here who listening right now to your program, because Mr. Malcolm Conlan, meron po siyang programang Pusong Pinoy, and I hope Mr. Malcolm Conlan, someday magkaroon ka ng mga sponsors sa iyong program, because Mr. Malcolm Conlan po ay nakakatulong din po sa mga kabayan natin. And hands-on siya sa lahat ng mga gusto talaga na magkaroon po ng matulong. So, Mr. Malcolm Conlan. Yeah. Mr. Malcolm, please invite all the viewers here to your program.
So just to say, I actually stopped doing my show Pusong Pinoy. I had the show during the time of the pandemic. At that time, a lot of people were more likely to watch online shows, but obviously post pandemic, you know, a lot of people are attending live face-to-face events, and obviously a lot of things have happened in my life where I can't really dedicate the time. However, people can still watch my shows on YouTube. They're still there if you type in Pusong Pinoy, Malcolm Conlan. And of course, now I'd like to say you can still follow me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm very happy for people to reach out to me to ask me questions. But more importantly, I'd like to congratulate you on what you're doing, you know, on this Reaction TV. This is the third time, I believe, that I've been interviewed by you guys, and I'm very, very grateful. I'm really appreciative, and I'd like to say maraming salamat, mabuhay, for everything you guys are doing for the country.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. And Trixie Villa, 1 minute. Okay. Ayan. Pakita lang natin yung ano ni Mr. Malcolm. Yan ho yung kanyang ginagawa.
There's one more
Yeah.
question very quickly from that was my show before.
Your
There's one-
series 4? Series 4
Yes.
Pusong Pinoy?
So thank
we
you
got on
so much,
series
Mr.
6.
Malcolm, for giving us the chance or sparing us your precious time and guesting in Reaction TV, sir. We really appreciate you for coming in.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. There was one question from
And we
somebody.
hope we get a chance again, I mean, in the future, to have you again as our guest.
Yan. Sabi ni Doc Marie, we are very satisfied with your answer, opinion, and views about the Filipinos. Mabuhay po kayo. And some question, Mr. Malcolm, who...
Yeah, there was one very quick question about would you change the Ninoy Aquino International Airport back to the original name as Manila International Airport?
Okay,
yes, I believe I would. I believe it's the Manila Airport Authority, and yet the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. That makes no sense to me. I believe it is time for it to become Manila International Airport. again. You know, a lot of people, obviously what happened at the airport, etc. You know, you can't change the facts, but I do think MIA is probably right to do that now. No disrespect to anybody personally, but that's just my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. Same my opinion, Mr. Malcolm, regarding Ninoy International Airport. Too much explain why I don't I don't believe. So need to change the name. And thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm Conlan. I very much appreciated to your join join me here at the Reaction TV, and thank you very much. And 2 years, three going to 3 years to friend with Mr. Malcolm, and thank you very much to support to all our kababayan, pusong Pinoy, and thank you. You are third time, huh, in Reaction TV?
Yes, correct,
Third
correct.
time. Oh. So thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. Very, very important to all the viewers here. Mr. Malcolm Conlan is a British nationality, but he have a good heart for the Filipino people. And call this a pusong Pinoy. Yan po
Oh,
ang tatak kay Mr. Malcolm.
question.
Yeah, yan po. Thank you for all your explanation, Mr. Malcolm. And
That's
I
very
hope,
kind. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. I hope all the viewers here now is satisfied to your answer, my question. Very, very satisfied. And Ma'am Lynn Tugado said thank you for this interview, and may we have more time to be with us and promoting our country by the next few months.
By all means, thank you so much. I probably need to shoot off now. I need to do something else, but I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. Maraming salamat po. Thank you to all the people engaging, all the people watching, and all the wonderful questions. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege. Thank you for your time. Maraming salamat.
Ayan. Okay. Lastly, Mr. Malcolm, Duterte, Sara, okay, please paki-screenshot na po, paki-screenshot na. Trixie 11, paki-screenshot na. Okay, please screenshot. Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat. Thank you. See you later sa ating next live. Mr. Malcolm Conlan, maraming salamat sa iyo. Good evening and good day. Bye-bye po sa inyo lahat. Thank you.